Hello, boys and girls. In lesson 5.9, we will determine percent of change by using the given formulas. So let's begin by asking ourselves, what is percent of change? So percent of change is the percent that an amount changes when it either increases or decreases. This can be a percent of increase or a percent of decrease, depending on what happened with the original number. So let's take a look how percent of change works. In order to find the percent of change, we would take the difference between the two numbers, the change, and divide it by the original number. The formula gives you a decimal, which must then be converted to a percent. So let's see how this happens. Enrollment at IS 34 in 2002 was 2,000 students. In 2009, enrollment was 1,500 students. What is the percent decrease in student enrollment to the nearest tenth of a percent? So this is an example of a percent decrease because the number went from 2,000 down to 1,500 students. So let's find the percent of change. In order to find the percent of change, we would take the difference between the two numbers, 2,000 minus 1,500, and then divide it by the original number. So the original amount was 2,000 before the decrease. So we would divide by 2,000. Well, 2,000 minus 1,500 is 500. And when we divide 500 by 2,000, we would get an answer of 0.25. 0.25 as a percent is 25%. Let's try another problem together. Enrollment at IS 34 in 1981 was 700 students. In 2001, enrollment was 1,200 students. What is the percent increase in student enrollment to the nearest tenth of a percent? Again, it is an increase because the number of students increased from the original 700 to 1,200. So again, we're going to do the difference divided by the original. And the difference would be 1,200 minus 700. The original is 700 because the school originally had 700 students before it then had 1,200 students. So here I would divide 500 by 700 to get 0.7142. Now, because I want to round to the nearest tenth, I want 4 decimal places because after changing it into a percent, I would need that 4th decimal place value in order to determine whether that 4 or the 10th place will increase or stay the same. So by changing this to a percent, I then move the decimal point over 2 places to the right, giving me 71 point. The 4 will stay the same because the number after it is below 5. So 71.4 would be our correct answer. So therefore, the school had a 71.4% increase. Let's take a look at another example. Six Flags Great Adventures average daily attendance in 2006 was 13,350. In 2007, it decreased to 12,900. What is the percent decrease in attendance to the nearest tenth of a percent? Again, we would take the difference between both amounts and divide it by the original number. So to find the difference, I will be subtracting 13,350 by 12,900 and then dividing that by 13,350 because that is the original number. So now when I subtract 13,350 by 12,900, I get 450. When I divide that answer by 13,350, I get the decimal number 0.0337. Again, we want 4 decimal places when it asks for the tenth of a percent. I will move my decimal point over 2 places to the right to give me the percentage 3 point. That 3 gets bumped up to 4 because the number to the right of it is 5 or above. So Great Adventure had a 3.4% decrease in the amount of attendance. So now let's take a look at percent error. A percent error occurs when the experimental value differs from the accepted value. So what does that mean? Let's take a look at an actual example. In order for us to find that percent of error, it is very similar in finding percent increase and decrease. So we would take the difference between the experimental value and the accepted or the actual value, and then divide it by the actual value. Let's take a look at an example. Phil used mental math to estimate that 11 times 5 is about 50. What is the percent error? Well, to find the actual value, we would multiply 11 times 5 to come up with 55. So the percent of error would be the difference between the actual value and the value that Phil estimated, and then dividing it by the actual value or the number 55. When we do 55 minus 50, we would have 5 divided by 55. This didn't line up correctly, so this 55 belongs under here, this 55 belongs under there. And when we divide 5 by 55, we would get 0.9 or 9%.